I think that we were kind of at the beginning of a revolution of free law. So that's what I'm most proud of is being involved in that and being able to contribute and make a difference in making law more freely available online.
Today on LawNext, Stacy Stern and Tim Stanley. 25 years ago, in the still fledgling days of the web, this husband and wife team founded Findlaw and quickly developed it into the most highly trafficked legal site on the internet. In 2001, they sold Findlaw to the West Group, and 2 years later, they founded Justia, whose mission is to make law and legal resources free for all, repeating their earlier success and then some with a site that is now one of the most highly trafficked legal sites on the web. This is Bob Ambrogi, and you're listening to LawNext, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. We'll get to our interview in just a moment, but first, let's hear about the sponsors who make this show possible. Now on to our interview with Tim Stanley and Stacy Stern. Tim and Stacy, welcome to LawNext.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's great to talk to you. Math is not my strong suit, and when I invited you guys to be on the show, it hadn't occurred to me that this is the 25th anniversary of the founding of Findlaw, and given that I have followed Findlaw since its earliest days and Justia since its beginnings, I feel like this is some sort of karma that you're on right now. So I'm really looking forward to talking to you guys.
We're excited about it, Bob. And I totally remember back about 25 years ago when we were working on Findlaw, and it was just very exciting. Can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about the fact, because I used to do, and you may be the only people in the world who might even remember this, but I used to do a newsletter for lawyers about the internet, and every year we would do little awards for the best legal websites. And I think in the very first year that you started, you won our award as best legal website. And this wasn't just me picking; it was a panel of judges who, of course, there weren't as many websites to compete with, I guess, in those days. But still, that was quite a thing. Not long after you started, you were already recognized as one of the best websites out there. So,
thank you. It was a great honor to be selected.
Yeah. So I have heard a couple of different accounts of how Findlaw got started. If we can go back and talk about that a little bit, and then we can come back and talk about Justia later. But everything from I guess the official version, what I see, it's still up on the Findlaw website, talks about Tim giving a presentation to the Northern California Association of Law Librarians. It kind of took that and put that up on the web, and it became Findlaw. Is that how it started, or what's your version?
Well, yeah, I mean, more or less there was, Stacy and I each had sites. So she had a cyberspace law site. And it was a PC Week site of the week one week back in 94, 95. And I was doing law and economics information as well. And, I was giving a talk. There was a brand new law library in Oakland in Alameda County. So I was giving sort of an intro talk there about online stuff. And, I think Hale Varian was there. He just started at Berkeley, being the dean at the School of Information Management Sciences there. So we did sort of take the stuff that we had, we put it together as a resource for law librarians initially. And then with, Martin, who's also sort of a digital libraries group that was doing some projects, was also helping out. And that sort of became the very beginnings of Findlaw. So it was sort of, we had information already to sort of put together, but the actual beginnings of it was for this law librarian, or this new law library that was just being opened in Alameda County. And that's sort of how it came together.
Yeah. Stacy, how did you look at what you were doing there? What were you hoping to build at that point?
Well, when we first started the Cyberspace Law Center and Tim's Law and Economics site, it was sort of just for fun. It was kind of a hobby. It was the very early stages of the internet, like you said. And then when we started putting Findlaw together, we just wanted to make legal information free and easy to find. So it was super exciting because there were very few sites at the time We were very inspired by Tom Bruce and Peter Martin at the Legal Information Institute. And, Yahoo was starting out, and we just were finding new sites every day and adding them into Findlaw. And we kind of felt like this is the beginning. It was sort of like the gold rush or something. It was kind of the beginning of something very exciting.
It's hard, I think, probably for a lot of people these days who are at least young, who are younger, who may not understand what the internet was like in those days. I mean, there was no Google yet. There was no kind of easy way to find stuff on the internet. So, I mean, could you, Tim, talk about that a little bit about how what there was in terms of legal resources and how people would have found it before Findlaw came along?
Well, I mean, it wasn't a lot. I mean, the main sort of site was Cornell, LII. So that was the big one. They were before the web as well.
92 or something,
90,
I think.
92, yeah. Because I used them for Gopher stuff. I was working on sort of antitrust litigation stuff with some professors doing the back end support. And I used the Cornell site all the time. So that was sort of the main one. And then there were some law schools putting up some information. I think, Rick Clow had put up the first online journal over at Richmond Law School. Yeah. And that was sort of starting up. And Indiana had some information up, was starting that World Wide Web legal resources, at least a legal resources channel within that sort of user participation group. But it was really Cornell. And then I think Yahoo was probably the main one being used because they were being promoted by Netscape at the time and helped out by Netscape. And so I spent a lot of time just adding links to Cornell on Yahoo. And it was really my initial participation was just making sure everybody knew how to get to LII for every single practice area in every single state. But then as we started adding more things, and especially some of the new cyberspace law stuff coming up with Stacy, and there's a lot more economic stuff going on at the time. The law, there's a lot of information I was putting up just for econ. It just sort of blossomed from there.
Yeah, you guys were already husband and wife at the point that you started Findlaw. I don't know that I've ever heard how you met.
No, we met in school, so it was a while ago, and then, but it was back in the '80s. So it's most people probably weren't even born.
Right, I was. And Stacy, what was your background before you started Findlaw? What were you doing?
Well, I studied communication as an undergrad, and I was very interested in all different types, mass communication, interpersonal communication. And then I went to law school, and I was really trying to find my way. And I just feel so fortunate that the internet came along because it allowed me to combine my academic training into something. So I really didn't know what I was going to do. And I feel so passionate to this day about making legal information and resources easy to find and free. So it really combined my trainings.
Yeah. Tim, what about you? What was your background before you started Findlaw?
I'd done sort of math, computer science. I did a master's degree and I did some law. Then I came back to a PhD program and was doing some consulting stuff with some profs on the, more on the law and economics analysis side, and was briefly part of SSRN when it first started, and then left that and then sort of did the Findlaw stuff. I thought I was going to be a law professor, but that just sort of petered out a bit. Yeah, it was fine. I thought that this was pretty good. I was interested in law, and I was, pretty good programmer, and with Martin, who was also doing some stuff involving sort of his dissertation was sort of about legal contracts versus parties versus terms and sort of objects that you could be inserted into contracts. It sort of combined the three of us together. It sort of just started working on it. And it was, there was editorial work, there was programming work, and we'd just go, and we'd go to conferences, we'd see something, we'd have the seminar for the Digital Libraries Project at Stanford Computer Science Department. We'd get an idea, we'd program it, just kept it going. So it was sort of fun. It was just pretty easy. Not a lot, like you said, not a lot of people doing it at the time. Although a lot of people certainly in the Valley were doing it, I think. But it was quite fun.
Yeah. Did you know from the outset? I mean, did you start from the outset with the intention of making this a business, or was it I mean, Stacy talked about how you had a couple of websites up there that you're doing more for fun than anything else. So, I mean, at what point did you realize this was going to be something that you can make a living at?
I don't think we were thinking of business initially. I think initially we talked to folks over at Stanford Law School and stuff, and they didn't seem to have a lot of interest in doing what we were sort of doing, which at that point was putting in editorial links, but also aggregating the case law that was online and some different items like that. There just wasn't a lot that they were thinking about, so we sort of fell into it business wise. But this was really before even before the bubble really started to grow back in 98, 99.
Yeah.
But it was relatively fun. We were able to make money, so we were able to support ourselves, which was nice. But we certainly weren't looking at the internet like it is today, or even like it was back in 2000. It was just something we could do. We're pretty good at it. We keep it going. It was okay.
I think I read an interview with Stacy that said that, Stacy, you can tell me if this is right, that you were originally kind of running it out of your apartment, and then as the business grew, you rented other apartments before you actually moved into a commercial space?
Exactly. Yes, we had wires and cords all over the place. It was kind of a scene. It was fun. It was just, there was a lot of excitement. And when we had enough people, we did rent some other units in the same building, and it was a really great way to grow with kind of shorter term leases without renting a whole commercial space. And then when we were ready, then we rented our first office, which is right down the street from where the Justia headquarters are now. It was actually the building we were in was the land was purchased by Google, so it's been torn down and it's now a Google parking lot. That the space is a Google parking lot, but Justia is just up the street from where our first commercial Findlaw office was.
I went to one of your offices, and I don't know how many you had or whatever. I know I was at one of them. I feel like it was like in a strip mall or something, or like a little, yeah. I don't know. That was a while ago.
Next to 7-Eleven.
Yeah, next to the 7-Eleven. That's what I remember. Yeah.
It's next to the 7-Eleven and the Starbucks. It's a great location. There's a movie theater across the street too.
Yeah.
And the gym was there too.
Yeah. Although, if I recall correctly, I think there was more Mountain Dew on Tim's desk than in the 7-Eleven next door. But
that's a good memory, Bob.
Yeah.
You have a great memory.
So, jump forward a little bit. Well, very quickly, as I said earlier, you gained a lot of traction in terms of traffic to the site, and presence, and recognition. In 2001, you sold Findlaw to, I guess, Thomson at that point. Before it was Thomson Reuters of the West Group. Why did you want to do that? Why did you want to sell it at that point?
Well, I think you take investors, and your choices aren't always your own when you have investors, even if you have the vast majority of shares, it turns out. I think with Thomson in particular, though, we had tried to hire Mike Willens to be our CEO, and I really thought highly of Mike at the time. I thought he was smart, from Michigan, which I liked, obviously. I always liked Michigan. Very, tech leader. I mean, I really thought he was had a certain level of charisma that I thought was really great. And so I think
he was he was the leader of West Group at that point.
When we first talked to him, he was the CTO.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Thomson North America. And then he was going to leave and become a VC. And then all of a sudden he became the head of West. And so I think that was one of the connections. And also, they said, look, we're not going to stop you for doing free stuff. At that time, Lexus One had come out. I don't know if you remember Lexus One for a bit.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that Lexus One actually helped West, because West and Lexus sort of study each other a bit, wanted to do something on the free side. And they had lawoffice.com, but they had spent a lot of money building that. I don't think that worked quite the way they had hoped in terms of things. So we were sort of a pretty easy solution. But I think the main item when we were sort of looking at the different things was really sort of Mike Willens, at least to me. I thought he was just the greatest guy. I really thought a lot of him. Later on, things didn't turn out that great, but at the time, that's what was going through my mind, for sure.
Yeah. there's certainly general knowledge in the legal world or in the legal industry that you ultimately weren't kind of happy with the direction Findlaw went in. What can you say about that? I mean, what were you happy about?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I wasn't happy with the direction because things were going as the way they were going. I thought, I had just taken over all the products, so I was doing the tech stuff. Most of their folks left. We redid the directory. We fixed things up. We started doing the tech side on the some of the website stuff. And I had just taken over the product stuff. We released some new products. I think we're doing very well from a Thomson standpoint, which is revenue growth and profits. I think we blew out any earnouts or anything else, any bonuses, always at the max. They were capping us always on that. So from a Thomson, which is very sort of financially focused organization, I thought we were doing very, very well. And I'd taken over the product stuff, and I just, with the website stuff, I put an emphasis on search engine optimization and sort of focusing on Google rankings, because that was really what was sort of driving things there. And obviously I had pretty good insight how Google worked at the time. And we made those switches. It really was working well for things once we made the changes. Almost did blogs. I mean, I was just starting to look at blogs as a product before Kevin was doing it, Flexblog. I've been on a panel with Rick Clow just like me a week before I got terminated by Thomson. And he was explaining how his blog was working. I said, wow, this is interesting. I went and made a Blogger account and started playing around with it. But that didn't quite, you see my old blog if you really look in there and go find it still. But it didn't really become anything. But it was close. It would have been something that they would have released earlier. But then, as it turned out, I think for whatever reason, even though I thought I worked pretty hard, I think there was some conflicts between me and maybe the general manager, but not. I don't think anything that could be overcome. But they let me go, and it was a big surprise for me, and really, I would say really devastating on a personal level. I mean, really just absolutely destroyed me. And I remember like the next day, I thought about it, and then started getting ready for Justia. I'd used that as my personal domain site. I said I went and incorporated like 2 days later, maybe, and then we started, and then we were going to just do SEO, and then we had some litigation, but we really didn't come together as a team until the end of 2014 is really when Justia really started, and then we just changed it around. It was a little bit different. We focused on revenue first this time before we did the free stuff. And we just started going, and we took a small team, and we went, and we've grown it ever since. But we've sort of grown our revenues and our profits, and then we add stuff, and then we keep adding and make some money, put up some more free stuff. We do a lot of stuff with other, educational places and nonprofits, so like Jurist and LII, obviously, two of the big ones that we work with. Yeah. And we don't have to worry about having to sell it because no one can really. We don't have investors, so it's nice. It's not, we're not a nonprofit, but we can certainly do whatever we want to do. And that's really been part of the bigger thing there. But if it had been up to me, I would have just worked at Findlaw forever. But, it goes the way it goes. I mean, they bought the company. They're right. They can do what they want.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I had read somewhere along the line was that there had been a bit of a divergence of the minds as to the extent to which Findlaw should be a consumer-facing site as opposed to a lawyer-facing site.
I think there was they certainly wanted to build something up so they could sort of bring in the personal injury family lawyers. So it's really sort of a new market for Thomson in a way. But that wasn't a conflict with me. I didn't think that was a problem, if you wanted to do it one way versus another. I thought you could do both. I still think you can do both. In fact, we recently just started focusing on the consumer stuff recently. So I don't think that was the problem. I do think there were a number of people, not within the Findlaw group, not even among the general manager, but within the Thomson organization as a whole, who would think, how is free case law a real business model? I mean, how do you do that? It doesn't seem to make sense. But it was. I think at least at the highest levels of like Willens and Brian Hall, I think they realized, look, this stuff's out there for free anyways. Why don't we capture the folks? And then we've got such strong editorial power. I mean, Wes, editorially. I mean, I really have lots of positive things to say about the Thomson Reuters organization, but the Westlaw product compared to anything else, it's night and day. There's nothing close. Yeah. And so they could just really sort of pick off the people that really were real legal researchers and sort of get them. Otherwise, you get it through fast case through your bar or something like that, or you can get free from us or court listener, things like that.
Yeah.
So,
Stacy, what was happening with you during this time with the Under the West umbrella?
Well, it was quite stressful. I had an amicable separation. When they asked him to leave, they didn't ask me to leave at the same time. So I was there until November of 2004. And I had an amicable separation, but you can imagine it was pretty stressful having the company that I worked at, that I co-founded in litigation with my husband. That was pretty stressful. And I do think, there were different visions of what West was looking to do and what Tim and I had as a vision for the company. But they had acquired Findlaw, and like Tim said, it was their prerogative to do that. So, I'm grateful I had an amicable separation, and I learned a lot, and I'm so happy to be doing Justia because we can take it in the direction we want to take it. We can do all the pro bono free law stuff that we want to do. And it's really exciting. I had a good time working at Findlaw. I learned a lot. It was not a good time after they asked him to leave.
Yeah.
And Tim worked so hard. Tim does not wear a suit, and he would fly overnight to Thompson, to Minnesota. He would put on a suit in the bathroom and then go to the meetings, and he produced so much. He gets embarrassed when I rave about him, but he's really an amazing human being, and he really led an amazing product effort, and he would go out with the salespeople and help them in the field. And Findlaw was a very successful acquisition for West.
Yeah. Findlaw was indeed a very successful acquisition for West, but for Findlaw's two founders, the acquisition did not work out as they had hoped. When we return, we'll hear about how they rebounded from that setback by founding Justia, effectively starting from scratch a second time and, for a second time, building a successful company. But first, let's hear about the sponsors who generously support LawNext. Welcome back to LawNext. 2003, Tim Stanley and Stacy Stern found themselves separated from the company they had founded. For Tim, the separation had been devastating, but he immediately turned his sights to starting another company. Probably didn't have to, as West reportedly paid $37 million for Findlaw, although neither part of the deal has ever confirmed that price. As we pick up our conversation, I asked Stacy whether the reported $37 million is accurate, and then turned to why, when they probably didn't have to financially, they wanted to jump right back in and start another company.
Well, when we sold the company, it was undisclosed, and I don't know where they got the number, but we have kept the information confidential. And I do want to add that there were a lot of shareholders, so
Yeah.
It wasn't just, the total sale price did not come to me and Tim as individuals.
Yeah. But so when you left, and Tim, you addressed this a little bit, but I mean, I imagine you probably had some money in your pocket at that point. You probably had some other options. Why did you want to start Justia? What is it you wanted to do with Justia, and why did you want to dive into another company at that point?
Well, so I think my initial thought was this: I didn't want to sit back and do nothing, because I knew that regardless of what I did, that time was going to go by, and I didn't want to wake up 10 years later and go, why did I start doing something, right? And I was in, literally just in this work mode. So I figured I better keep going while I'm in this mode. In terms of what my skill set was, I could program, do that. my thought was, well, I know some basic stuff. I knew SEO, and I don't know if you know Peter Boyd at Paper Street.
Yeah.
He's got a nice company. He's got, there's a lot of stuff going on. So he was doing like this SEO stuff separate. And I remember because I had looked at the stuff when we were, beforehand. I said, well, he's doing a separate SEO thing. And I had canceled an SEO project explicitly at Findlaw because when I was at the products, because I said, why would we do SEO as a product? Because we have all these websites that we have. And if we sell SEO services, you're not selling it to a law firm. You're just teaching a bunch of developers how to SEO websites for Google. And you teach all these developers, you'll sell it to them once and they'll use it 1,000 times. So I said, we're not going to sell that. That's crazy. But Peter was actually selling it at the time. I remember looking at that and I said, well, I'm brand new. I don't have any clients. Here's a product I killed. I'll do this because what the hell do I care if everybody knows all the information? So I put up an SEO center. I started putting up the details of it and I figured we'd do a little bit of that. But then, obviously, they sued me and stopped me for a while. I go into jurisdictional issues and things, but there wasn't any trade secrets there. This is basic stuff you could have read on Search Engine Land or sort of Search Engine Journal or any of the other sites that were out there at the time. Search Engine Watch, I think, was Danny Sullivan's old site.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something new. And then we also had a cafe press store, but that was not really a trade secret. It was, there were 500,000 at the time. Now there's millions, obviously. So it was a little bit odd that the litigation happened, but certainly they were able to. And I was going to win in California. I'd filed in California before they filed in Minnesota, but it was very difficult on that part. So it turned out we went forward. We solved it out. They stalled me out a while, and then I still got paid, and I had to wait a bit, but. It certainly was motivating. I had nothing else to do but to learn everything and connect up with folks. And I was hopping on like LinkedIn, like I connected up with you on LinkedIn when it first came out and things like that.
Yeah.
So I was still hanging out here within the sort of the Silicon Valley social world of stuff and just sponging up things while I was waiting, so which is okay. And then when we came out pretty fast, and then we sort of took it from there. No, it's obviously not. We could have raised money and done something else, but I think even though it's taken a while, I think right now at least it's better. I don't think that was necessarily. I think it was very hard for a while.
It was hard to get traction for Justia, you mean, or?
Well, a little bit hard. You had to get some initial sales coming in. People had to be paid and to eat, and we were really sort of funding it out of profits. Put a little bit of money in, but not a huge amount. Yeah. But then we got going, and then once you get going, and now, so now it's working fine. But it was, there was a lot of stress. It's a lot of stress.
Were there lessons that you had learned from starting and building Findlaw? That I'm sure there were tons of them, but
my biggest lesson was don't raise outside money unless you have to, because then you no longer run your company. And even if they have a very small percentage interest in it, right? It doesn't matter, because the terms of the deal are going to be that at some point you're going to have to pay them back that money if you don't get an exit strategy. So if you raise money, start looking towards your exit. And it could be, maybe it's an IPO, maybe it's private equity buys you, or you get merged in. But you're no longer calling the shots, and you shouldn't think that for a second. And I think that was the biggest lesson I learned at Findlaw. And I kind of knew that. That's why it took us so long to raise money. But we did it, and I regret it in a way. But on the other hand, I don't regret it today, so it's fine now. But it's an old story. It happens to lots of people.
That same ABA Journal article that I talked about before regarding Stacy actually quotes me. And one of the things I say in the article, I don't even remember saying this, but I don't doubt that they quoted me right. I said of the two of you, I said, they're good karma people. They're not in it for the money. Seems so un-American. But I'm sure you are in it for the money to some extent. And yet your mission, as you say, is to make law and legal resources free. You do a lot of pro bono work in terms of supporting things like the Stanford Copyright and Fair Use Center and other projects. You even give away free websites to lawyers. I think you still do that. What drives that side of it? Why are you so committed to trying to make the law free and trying to do these other, pro bono types of projects?
So, we live in a society and law applies to all of us. And for a very long time, most people didn't have access to be able to get the law. The law was owned by foreign corporations, and regular people didn't have access to it. So we felt very, very strongly that everybody should have access to law and legal information that applies to them. And that's why we are so passionate about what we do, and why we continue to do this. Certainly there were other opportunities and different courses we could have taken after Findlaw, but we both have legal training, and we feel like this is an area where we can make an impact. And we really enjoy working with organizations like Cornell and OIA, which we now work with Cornell on, Legal Information Institute on. We enjoy working with jurists and a whole host of other organizations to make public resource, to make legal information free and easy to find.
Yeah.
And we do have to generate revenue to fund all of this work, but it's really fun being able to do something where we're making a difference.
Yeah. Well, as Tim said earlier, that when the people at West probably wondered, how is Findlaw a business model? So how is Findlaw a business model? I mean, how do you generate that revenue?
So we have a range of different services that we offer for pay. You mentioned we have the free websites, but our paid websites are much, much better. We also, help law firms with internet marketing generally. So Google has pay-per-click. There's pay-per-click on Facebook. There's new products coming out all the time. The internet is constantly changing, and lawyers and law firms, it's a lot to navigate for them. And by putting up good websites and putting up good profiles, all lawyers can get a free profile on the Justia lawyer directory. By putting up a strong profile, putting up a strong website, lawyers can share information with consumers, so they're more educated, and business people looking for lawyers, they're more educated in selecting their attorneys. So, we help them present really strong websites that are findable, and we have the free listings on the lawyer directory. We also have premium memberships. We offer blog services, pay-per-click management, a whole host of things. And we have free legal information. We have a blog called Onward, which is Justia Onward blog, which is basically about developments in, internet marketing for law firms and technology and the like.
Yeah, and in the interest of full disclosure, you used to host my blog, and used to host it at no cost to me for some silly reason that I don't understand. But I really always appreciate that, and that was very generous of you to do.
It was our pleasure. It was our pleasure. Yeah. We know you produce a lot of great content, and you're a friend from way back in the beginning of all of this. So it was our pleasure to do that.
Thanks. And you have also expanded internationally. I mean, you have an office in Mexico, right? I was looking back through my remembering at some point you had launched even in Cuba. Is that still a thing? Do you still have Justia Cuba?
Yeah, we have a site for Cuba. We don't have people working in Cuba. Yeah,
but you have an office in Mexico, though, right? You have
yeah.
Yes, we have a beautiful office in Saltillo, Mexico.
Yeah. How has this year been for your staff and for your operations? Have you all been working remotely like everybody else, or how have you been doing it?
Well, safety is our priority. So we're all telecommuting, even though we loved going and seeing each other in the offices. We've all been telecommuting, using Google Meet mostly, to have video meetings. But we had video set up in both our office locations before, because we have multiple offices in the United States, and then we have the office in Mexico. So we do a lot of telecommuting. this has definitely been a challenge. The pandemic has been really sad, and I know so many people are suffering. It's very, very sad and a challenging time. We're very fortunate that we can telecommute.
Yeah.
And we shut down stuff a little bit before California did, and certainly before Mexico shut down. And I remember I was texting with Kevin, Kevin O'Keefe, and before he's going to come out early March, I said, I don't think I'd get on the plane to come out here. I said, this is going to get bad. And I said, you can meet with me, but we're not meeting inside the office. And that was like a couple of weeks later, everything got shut down. But this is really bad. We've had a few folks that have had COVID. Some people have had it very seriously. This is not going to turn out good. And, we'll probably get through it, but I think it's hard. I think it's hard to manage people. I think it's hard for, especially folks in apartments with kids. I mean, really difficult time. And so, it's, overall, we're getting work done. We have lots of meetings, but this is not a positive by any means at all.
Yeah. What do you still want to do with Justia that you haven't done yet?
Well, I think, for us, obviously we want to put up more free information. We're working with some folks like, Fast Case and Unicourt on some of the docketing stuff. I guess, let me sort of step back and say, I sort of think of Justia as being a sort of a combination of things. I think one, we want a lot of stuff with Cornell. I think longer term, us and Cornell are going to work even more together on some different, technologies and stuff, which is really good. All will be open for everybody. So it's always nice. So we like to do the free law stuff. I think, recently we started doing a little bit more of the consumer stuff, trying to get involved there, not just in the US, but also in Mexico. We're trying to build up the consumer portal in Mexico, which is, relatively important, especially on certain employment laws, family law stuff is good to know. So we're focusing on that. So I sort of think the Tom Bruce, Peter Martin world, and then we've got the Jake Warner NOLO world, right? Where you're trying to really write good consumer stuff. And, we're not at the NOLO level yet, but we want to make our stuff really good. And we like to do stuff with NOLO. I mean, they're always the best on the consumer side. Yeah. And then a little bit of the AVO participation stuff. I thought that overall creating that community was really great the way they sort of put that together. So we're trying to work all three together. And then, we want to get more lawyer participation on stuff, whether it's, our own questions and answers, annotating cases. We got to give people some incentives to sort of do it, to share free stuff. But, in terms of building things, I say right now it's a little bit on the consumer side of information, building that up, and then some more country stuff. We're doing some stuff with some countries in Africa, also Latin America, rebuilding some of that stuff up, building that further. And then eventually we'll hit some additional countries as we sort of march out, either with different LIIs, partnering with them, and just, we do some financial support for a lot of different LIIs. We do a lot of stuff that I don't think most people know about. We don't really we don't have a web page on our thing. But sort of focusing on that stuff and just getting more information up, whether it's on our site or someone else's up, and just trying to make sure it all gets in going, and stuff like that.
Stacey, anything else that you're thinking of?
Well, I'm in alignment with Tim, and I also just want to add that with so much information, it's really a challenge to make it, just to make it easy to find on our own site. So certain things are buried, and I want to fix up our search capability on our site and just make it easier for people to find on their site the things they need as fast as possible. So, more cool free stuff, more free legal information, and just making our own site nicer and better and easier to use.
Yeah. Are either of you surprised that 25 years after founding Findlaw that we're still having this conversation about making law free and accessible to members of the public and to anybody? Do you think we've made much progress? I mean, we've made a lot of progress in terms of technology and everything else, but what's your take on where we stand after 25 years of this?
My take is some states have made progress, right? Some states have moved in a direction of opening up their case law or their codes and things like that. But for the most part, no, I don't think it's been that great. Even, the federal appellate courts, it's slip opinions, getting the final version of the opinions. California, you can get it through Lexis if they take out they strip out certain things. I mean, there's ways you can find it. I mean, in terms of the official site on the California site. So I don't think it's. I think it's underwhelming in terms of what's actually occurred for most states around the federal side. There are some movements to open up laws and open up PACER and things like that, which would be good. But no, I don't. It's not great. I think there's some conflict with some of the commercial publishers, but I also think the states really want to spend money on it. It's not obvious that this is a focus of theirs, given all the other priorities. There's a lot of, especially after COVID, there's a lot of financial pressures on states right now. And this just has not been their core priority in terms of opening up stuff. And you see it, in which case you can have litigation like the Georgia case that Carl and Public Resource brought forward to try to open things up. But it's not easy. Yeah. I was to say, Georgia, Lexis wouldn't even license out the headings to Fastcase. So that was just a basic level. They claimed copyrights on the headings of the code sections. They could put up the code in certain ways. And
so it wasn't just the head notes or whatever, or the annotations.
Yeah, not just the annotations. It was a little bit more than that. Well, that became the focus of the lawsuit for sure, because the other stuff seemed obvious. You might have talked to Ed at some point about that. It was very interesting. But that was one of the, treating folks like that, and you go, well, now we're got to litigate it. I mean, there's no way around it. You can't let that go. But it's not, it's not what you would hope. And it's a little bit, it sort of is what it is. So, But on the other hand, Georgia, that's the guy who's trying to open up a lot of the data right now is a guy from Georgia. So there's a lot of, it's not all the same. Every state's different with different folks.
Yeah.
It's not surprising because there's so much money at stake, but it's disappointing that it's not further along, but not surprising.
Yeah. Have you guys ever been tempted to try and get more of that money, to put more stuff behind a paywall, or put anything behind a paywall? I should say.
We got no interest in that at all. Yeah. In fact, even like stuff like we have the case summaries, right, which we now write for all the federal appellate courts, for the Supreme Court, the next day summaries, all the top level state courts, so like Texas, civil and criminal, Delaware gets the corporate and the Supreme Court. And then for California, we do all the appellate stuff. We put that out not just for free and on our site and things like that. We send it to even commercial guys. So we send it over to VLEX and Fastcase for free. We hand it out, and we try to get stuff sort of sent out. So, could we charge for that? Probably, because that's actual real editorial work on our part. Yeah. But we're not going to do it. And that's the other part. Like sometimes we want to license case law or stuff like that. I always tell people I'd like to license it from you, but if I get it, I'm going to give it to court listener. I'm going to put it on Internet Archive. I'm giving it out to everybody. I'm not going to. I can't help myself. So we can't. Even if we get it, we're going to share it with everybody. So it makes it harder to license things sometimes, right? Like other people are doing. It's there's a difference between free law, which is getting it and sharing it out with the world, through folks, and which is like Cornell, Mike Listener, and Internet Archive, us, and free access to law, which is fine, but not quite the same thing. So. It's just a little bit different. And it doesn't mean one's necessarily better than the other. Obviously, people need to have business models that work. But for us, our goal is to do sort of the marketing stuff, take that revenue, put up free stuff, whether it's our site, Cornell, Pittsburgh, wherever the information is going to be, and just keep that going in that way. And I think if we do it right, we should be able to, sort of keep this cycle going. And, eventually this will, everything will be great. But, it's still work, right? It's not trivial. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing that you can't help yourself in that regard. It's many of us have benefited from it. So Stacy, looking back over 25 years in this business, what are you most proud of in your career?
Well, being able to, I think that we were kind of at the beginning of a revolution of free law. So that's what I'm most proud of is being involved in that and being able to contribute and make a difference in making law more freely available online.
Tim, how about you?
Well, certainly that, and I like the fact. I like our team. I like sort of Vasu sort of run U.S. stuff, and Hector running stuff in Saltillo, and
Vasu is your CTO,
and then COO. She really runs stuff. I mean, she's doing everything.
She's amazing.
Yeah. So I and Hector runs the larger team out in Saltillo. So I really like that. I like the people I work with. So I just like the people, and I really enjoy it. I like working on projects with them. We don't have any assholes, so that's always good. And they're nice. They're friendly. They work hard. They don't screw around, and they're focused. And it's really it makes it fun. And so that to me is the stuff I like the most. It doesn't mean we don't have craziness going on periodically, but that's life. But that to me is the beyond putting up all the free stuff. It's just the people we work with. If I didn't like the people we work with, it would really suck. So that's really turned out to me is probably the bigger thing on a day-to-day basis. It's just liking the folks.
Yeah, we have an amazing team that we get to work with. It's really a privilege to go to work every day and work with this group.
Yeah, I've met some of them. Certainly not most of them, but the ones I've gotten to know over the years are all really good people. So, Stacy, anything else? Any kind of closing thoughts before we wrap up here? Anything else you wanted to mention?
Well, I'm just so grateful for, we have a wonderful team like Tim mentioned, and then there's so many inspirations that we've had over the years, like Tom Bruce and Peter Martin at the Legal Information Institute at Cornell, and Jake Warner and Tony at NOLO. These types of folks have really been inspiring in being at the forefront of legal information and making it more accessible for more people.
Tim, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Stacy. I mean, I like the community of folks that are doing it. Even from commercial folks like Ed at Fastcase and Josh and Prashant at Unicourt, and obviously LAI NOLO folks.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that Stacy says she was glad to be part of helping to start this kind of free law movement 25 years ago. It's what's fascinating is that you're still pushing the envelope on it, and you're still pushing it forward. And that's really probably the greatest testament to the work you're doing. Clearly, I am a fan, and I have no reason to be discreet about that. But I think you guys have done great work over the years, and it's been a real pleasure and honor to know you, and a real pleasure and honor to speak with you today.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the opportunity, Bob. It was really fun talking with you.
Yeah. Well, keep up the good work and stay well, and hope we all get to travel again sometime and get to see each other in the flesh at some point.
That would be awesome.
Thanks to Stacy Stern and Tim Stanley for joining us this week on LawNext. I hope you enjoyed the show. LawNext is produced and edited by Populous Radio. I'm your host, Bob Ambrogi. I hope you'll join us again next time for another episode of LawNext.